I'm gonna try to video it. It's like on my phone and my phone's balanced on something, so sorry if you can't see it all, but I'll show it more in depth. So it's kind of a branch on what we already knew. So you know how like the K, when it was outside of the X, so here's like X by itself, and then plus K, this affected the Y. So it went either up or down. My dog's also going absolutely crazy in the background. I'm so sorry. And then when the K, or not the K, but the H is inside, it affects the X. So it goes like side to side. So then when it's inside with the X, it does the Can you go do that in the bedroom? Jesus. So if it's inside, it does like the opposite. So if it was X plus 2, that would mean that it was going to the left 2 times. And then if it was X minus 2, we were going to go right 2 times. That's because when this gets pulled out, we're changing the sign because we have to zero it out. So to zero it out and change it, you'd have to add 2. So that's why the sign gets changed, or you have to minus 2. So that's why when it is inside the parentheses with the X, that's why it changes. But when it's outside of the X, you don't have to pull it out of the parentheses, so you don't have to do anything. So if it's a positive, it goes up. If it's a negative, it goes down. So that's why those matter. So then the next one that we're learning, this one's a new one. So the reflection over the x-axis. So if it goes here, it will then end up going here. That is if there's a negative in front of the x. So say like negative x to the square root. So because the negative is right there, it's just telling us to take it over the x-axis. That's why also in the notes when we had, I think it was -2 or -4, it was something like that. Whenever it's in front of it, imagine everything in its own little world. So everything in its own little world, that's not really affecting this. That is just telling us that this is going to be negative. So it's going to go across the x-axis. Or if this was down here, it would tell us that it would turn positive because a negative times a negative would give you a positive. So it's not technically our base because our base is just that right there. The x or whatever constant is right there is our base. The negative is just telling us to flip it over the x-axis. Now for the y-axis, I'm gonna try to move this along. So then for the y-axis, it depends on if it's with the, like, I guess X isn't a good thing to use it for. So I'll use B for base. I think that's what we were doing in class. So if it's with the X, it's going over the y-axis. So like X, negative X there, it's telling us that it's going over the y-axis. So instead of being over here, it's going over here. Or vice versa. Most of the time, it's a positive. So imagine you had a positive X there and then you're turning it negative. It would then make your X's turn into negatives. But if it was already a negative times a negative would turn it into a positive. And that only affects the X because that's with the X, it's not with the base. Like up here, I think it would have been better if I did a B instead of an X, but it's the same. It just affects the X. So because it affects the X, ooh, I don't think you can see that. And so since it affects the X, that's how it's flipping over the y-axis. While up here, it's affecting the Y, so it's flipping up and down. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does. That's how I think of it. So then those are your basic rules, which is what we have, I think, on the paper. So if it's, I'm gonna turn this. So if we have negative, say negative 2x plus 3, this is telling us that it's going to flip over the x-axis. So instead of being up here, we're going to put it down here. And then this is going to tell us that it is going to go right, since it's with the x. So again, because it's with the x, it's telling us to go, oh wait, no, I did a positive, so it's actually going left. Tee-hee. So because it's telling us to go left, and this is telling us to go over the x-axis, we're going to start it down here. So they taught it by graphing the parent function first, which to me just seemed a little like beating a dead horse. I mean, it makes sense. It gives you a good base and it like helps, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's easier to just start it. We're going to do, I've already done these. So I'll do separate videos for them so that you guys can go back to the videos that you need it on. But that's just the basics on like your like rules of why, if it's a negative x, it flips. Why, if it's inside, it goes negative or positive. That stuff.